Before we go to Pete Buttigieg, because I think he's still the most compelling figure.
I was going to ask, why the intrigue? Because we talk about him a lot. He started out as an unknown on the national stage just a matter of months ago.
There's always a darling. He wouldn't be an appropriate darling.
Hey.
There's always a darling. There's always somebody that the media, for whatever reason.
But I thought that was supposed to be Beto. Robert Francis O'Rourke.
If Beto were gay, the mainstream media would probably embrace him as they have Buttigieg or whatever his name.
Pete Buttigieg.
Buttigieg, right? I mean, Alec, isn't that right?
He looked up the pronunciation.
That's what I thought. And he's Buttigieg. Mayor Pete sounds a whole lot easier. But yeah, I think Beto was the intended savior. Articulate, photogenic, rolls his sleeves up and looks kind of like a regular guy until Mayor Pete came along, and his stances and positions and policies are very similar, but he's gay. And I think that can challenge the political establishment, and that's kind of what the liberal media like to do. They like to push the envelope in a way that makes some people like you and I very uncomfortable. So it's it's kind of a two-headed monster right now. You've got him, and he is a bright guy. I mean, you listen to him talk very often. Now, I would argue he's fairly shallow. He doesn't give a lot of real good answers. I mean, I think he said something yesterday very interesting, but I want to go back. I don't want to get sidetracked because I've got this on my mind, and I want to get out of my mouth. Remember me talking about the realities of eBay and why somebody would feel like selling a dinosaur online was their most valuable and reasonable opportunity. But they did. That's what they chose to do. Well, I was looking, after I read that article, I began looking at a couple of other things. And I read an article in CNN. I don't have it in front of me, but I read it in CNN, and it told how many stores were closing in America this year. The number of retail
like
businesses.
brick and mortar type
It's
stores.
crazy. Well, I mean, we were having this battle, Rev, called, let me Google this real quick. I mean, I'm doing it real time, retail closures. Okay.
And we know it's happening.
It's happening at warp speed.
But when you see it in numbers, somebody studied it. And
All right, here's the article.
Okay.
American retailers already announced 6,000 store closures this year. That's more than all of last year, and last year was a record setter.
Wow.
And we were having this battle, and we're talking about income inequality. Here's what I'm trying to argue. And once again, I've said this 1,000 times. I'll say it again. I don't have many redeeming qualities. I don't. I didn't know I had this redeeming quality until I turned 40 years old and ran for political office. But for whatever reason, you've got a good quality about you. You're patient, you're thorough, and you know how to fix stuff electronically. I mean, I couldn't do that. I'm not patient enough. I'm not methodical enough. I would tear it up and throw it away and just get real frustrated, aggravated with it. But that's a quality of yours. That's a God-given skill that you've gotten. You've been able to harness that energy and make a productive and beneficial career for yourself. And I'm proud of you. Bump into me and your world changes, and we're on the path to stardom together.
Oh, yeah.
And I give you as much credit as I'll probably give you a lot more than you deserve, but I mean, that's just the way I'm wired. That's the way I'm wired.
You're very generous like that. Thank you so much.
So I started reading this article, and at the end of the day, it's on CNN Business, and at the end of the day, I've concluded, and I think this is political, because once again, we're not Vulcans. We're not creatures of logic. A lot of our voting tendencies are based on anxiety and fear and these predispositions we have about where we are in relation to the world around us. This year, U.S. retailers have announced 6,000 store closures. That number already exceeds last year's total of 5,894 closure announcements, and this is according to a recent report by some group called Coresight Research. So I went and Googled their website and Googled some information about them. They're very reputable, very well regarded, very well respected in the retail projection business. In other words, they keep up with the numbers. Bankruptcies in the retail sector. And we know the clicks versus bricks debate that we're all trying to figure and sort our way through. But it has aggressively closed underperforming stores. Are the underperforming stores because they're not just any good, Or are the underperforming stores because there are headwinds that they just can't overcome? I was reading Payless, Gymboree, Charlotte Russe, Family Dollar, GNC, Walgreens, Victoria's Secrets, J.C. Penney. We know the story of Kmart. We know the story of Sears. A lot of that was they got stale, they got old, they got mundane, they got lethargic, and other people did it better. But sometimes you can't be good enough. And we're talking about capitalism now. And, you know, the markets, the free market is what the free market is. And you've heard me refer to the animal spirits of the free market. This research CEO at Coresight says the flood of store closures will likely continue for quite an extended period of time. You've heard me say in the Trump phenomenon, I think we're at base camp 1 of scaling Mount Everest. Where we end up, I don't know, but I don't think we're anywhere near the run of this different political movement. I think Bernie Sanders could be a part of this political movement. I think people are intrigued by a socialist because of some of the anxieties we're talking about. And then you've got capitalist zealots. You know, I asked you this morning, what is a capitalist zealot? But I want to go through some information. And I'm always beating up on academia and calling it, you know, it's easy to sit in a classroom with a whiteboard and a razor, you know, when you don't have to deal with the real world. A little bit like the Rodney Dangerfield sign, Back to School, when the person gives the lecture on economics and business, and Rodney Dangerfield is kind of back to school late in life. He said, well, are you going to build that business on Mars? I mean, you got to pay the Teamsters, or they'll bust your windows out. You got to pay the 2 county council members that depend on you getting water and sewer to your business. I mean, so he's in a very practical way. Well, the practicality of what's happening is mind-boggling if you're interested in it. And I said yesterday, I thought income inequality would be a defining issue in this election. And I do. I think it will. I think this is going to play a far more important role than people imagine. I think it'll play a role subconsciously. But I think when people go to the ballot box, a lot of times fear, anxiety, or as a part of that, frustration and anger were probably what motivated people to vote for Trump. I'm frustrated and I'm mad. I'm tired of the way things are, and I want to be the one that voted a bull into a china shop. And it made people feel good. Well, I think anxiety and fear are powerful emotions that will motivate some people to vote a certain way. So when you say, well, Ken, why in the world do you think 6,000 retail businesses closing has anything to do with the presidential election? I'm sure it does. I don't think it does. I'm sure it does. And I think somebody will harness some of that anxiety and fear and failing to clearly understand where they're headed in their employment. I think of ALEC a lot, millennials. I think they have challenges that we have bestowed upon them, the federal debt, and I think they have challenges that the internet brings along. And if I were giving ALEC advice, find a job that you can't ship to China and a computer can't take away from you. And that's fairly simple advice, and I'm not a guidance counselor by any stretch of the imagination, but it goes back to the G.I. Joe with the Kung Fu grip view of the economy. Find you a job as a young person that it can't be shipped to China and a computer can't take your place. What that is, there's a lot of jobs out there, but obviously there's a lot of jobs that can be shipped to China because we've done that. There's a lot of jobs that can be replaced by technology and automation and the computer and the internet. We've seen that. And I think the 6,000 store closures is a direct result of this shopping phenomenon called e-commerce. And it kind of led me down the road of what is indeed the impact of e-commerce on, and here's where I ended up, because this is my world a little bit. I understand the Gymborees and the Payless, the Family Dollars, the Walmarts, the Kohl's. I understand their struggles. I mean, there is no question about it. They have significant headwinds that I don't think they can overcome. I just don't. I've heard talk in downtown Florence and downtown Hartsville and downtown Charleston about retail. Got to bring retail here. I wouldn't waste my time on retail. I mean, we talked about dinosaurs a second ago. I think traditional brick and mortar retail is a dinosaur. I'm not saying it's going to be extinct, but it's going to be a lot less influential in our shopping habits sooner than later.